Hello everyone, I'm glad you're here with me again. Most people did not study economy or politics or history or art or storytelling or marketing or social engineering. And even more than that, most people have no idea that such fields exist in the first place. And they have no idea that those fields have their own industries and their own consumer bases, and more importantly, that they influence all aspects of everyone's life. Not only who they should vote for, but also what they eat and dress, and even who and how they get married and die. What car to buy. Why to hire an insurance company. The desires that shape our imagination of what kind of a house we should live in. Why to join the army or the police. Our desires and wishes are being programmed and shaped by those factors without even being aware of it. So we have soldiers believing they are doing something heroic by joining the army. But actually, the reason why they joined the army in the first place was stories and myths in the old times, and today, action films produced in Hollywood by political and or commercial entities. Most people have no idea that those films were designed to serve such function. They would not even think that their action films or police TV series or other kinds of themes are part of social engineering campaigns financed by profiteers. No one would even consider that oil companies that want to access the oil fields in the Middle East have financed action films for decades. Films about brave soldiers dying gracefully and heroically in the Middle East in wars against terrorism. Many people would not even think that there's a link between both, or that what is so-called holy wars is only a concept used by all empires and constructed to serve commercial and political purposes. Just like people would not conceive the connection between wearing a face mask and the pharma industry preparing the ground to hijack the market with products in the name of health without being held accountable for any damages. So most people did not study economy, politics, history, art, etc., and therefore will never conceive that such campaigns are intentionally engineered and architected behind the veil of consciousness. So we are living today in a situation where we see an average person who works in a daily job as an employee or as a bureaucrat, framing such a question. What is the purpose of Bill Gates to pay the mainstream media and online trolls in order to trend face masks just to sell his vaccine? It doesn't make sense. We see such phenomena. An average person compares his perception and his intentions and his life objectives and his intellectual level with those of the most influential and intellectually advanced people on Earth. An average person compares his intellectual level with those of the most intelligent people on Earth, because the average is average by definition. So he or she would never conceive the amount of wealth and investment and risk and profits and losses and actions that the influential guy is capable of doing and taking. Just because the average guy was never exposed to such complexity and never learned things beyond his average beliefs and habits. So it becomes easier for the average to label things with simplistic terms than to activate the potential of their brains. Terms like conspiracy theorists or terrorists or criminals, etc. One term is supposed to summarize for them everything. It is way easier for them to call others with names than to generate enough empathy and emotional wealth that gives access to the complexity of reality. Many of those average non-thinkers are paying a heavy price today for that, and I hope that they stop arguing with existence and start allowing their salvation to take place before it's too late. Sometimes it's really fascinating to watch how difficult it is for people to make a change, a conscious change in their lives, but how easy it is to change them by undermining their consciousnesses. The majority of humanity today has collectively changed everything it stands for in less than 2 weeks. Manufacturing consent are one of those tools that are used in order to achieve that. Think about those who lack the ability to think for themselves and believe everything said on TV. Just create for them the illusion that everyone consents. And they will join quickly, with all necessary emotional bias, supporting that official statement without interest to know what the details are. They believe everything said on mainstream media without question. And regardless of how naive the story is, even when the source of information is declared as anonymous or unknown, they would believe because it's on TV. But when an independent scientist makes a statement that is not in line with the official version, suddenly all of them are professional critical thinkers overthinking and demanding to see every piece of evidence with their own eyes. Where is your proof? Do you have a proof? This is a dangerous statement that you're making here. You better back it up with facts. And even when the independent professional succeeds to prove that, instead of allowing that proof to sink in and to resonate into change and into conception and acknowledgement, they start scanning for a contradiction that they never find. They never find. And though they never find, but eventually they reject the statement anyway, because it's not on TV. And when they have no answer at all, they would immediately download that quickest program that is also coded and programmed by the mainstream media in order to face such intellectual blockage. You're a conspiracy theorist. Or they start questioning the professional's background. Or start gossiping about his relationship with his ex-wife. Now, of course, those social engineering techniques and trending techniques need to be planned and executed by professionals in order to make that effect. And what I mean by professionals here are mainly those who could be afforded by governments or big organizations. Because I see many non-professionals or semi-professionals or maybe even people who take loans from the bank and open impressive agencies and marketing firms claiming to be professionals, but still many of them have no idea what they're talking about. They might create the illusion of success, but only for a very short term. Just like those who buy hundreds of thousands of subscribers and followers and comments and likes on social media just to create the illusion that they already have a reputation and that they are trending and acknowledged and validated by many people, by hundreds of thousands of people. And since validation is a currency in group dynamics, so they hope they can convert it into money and into wealth. But of course, when those techniques are planned and executed by non-professionals, the advertiser would crash very quickly and very soon. And by the way, also when a scam is planned and executed by a professional con artist, the advertiser would also crash, but maybe very gradually. And it takes more time and things get more and more complicated, so it becomes very difficult to follow the chain of cause and effect and to detect the fail. And of course, to heal the system when necessary. And this is not only on social media, but we can see it happening in our personal lives today, in our world today. How can you convince the majority of humanity to choke their children with a piece of fabric? This is one of the most fascinating experiments of all times. People today are actually choking on pieces of fabric by free will. People are dying in their apartments with diving suits by free will. Many people are forcing their children into isolation by free will, and even holding the torch in the first line to show that they stand behind their new conviction. How can you make an immoral, unethical, unhealthy, and dangerous act to be believed as the only moral thing to do, and the only ethical thing to do, and the only healthy and safe thing to do? Manufacturing consent. Here are the three demons. 1. Fear. If you do not comply with the new status quo, you will personally pay a heavy price. 2. Guilt. If you do not comply with the new status quo, you will harm others and therefore you will personally pay a heavy price. You can see how the Indian police was torturing people in the streets in the days of the lockdown. In the West, we also have new ways to deal with situations with new kind of police violence and other policing techniques like heavy fines. 3. Shame. If you do not comply with the new status quo, you will be socially ousted and therefore you will personally pay a heavy price. Some people lose their friends, some people get fired from work. Just pay attention that in all the three, one must pay a heavy price personally. That's important because, for example, officers and policemen know that if they harm others, including innocent people, they will rarely pay a price for that personally. That might hurt the reputation of the unit or the organization or cause damages to the properties paid by the taxpayer, but personally, they will not pay for the damages caused by them. So if you want to sue an officer, you can't sue him personally because he's protected by his organization. They even could be backed up by the media to reframe things in the favor of the bureaucrat. So they make the bureaucrat appear as a victim, while the victim appears as a perpetrator. But if you are a normal person, you will personally be prosecuted for anything you do. And therefore, those three demons that I just mentioned are efficient only when the actor pays the price personally for their actions. If people are exempt or immune, they can abuse and abuse and abuse with no fear and no guilt and no shame. They can even abuse and still believing that they are on the right side of history. We spoke about narcissism in the past. Now, in order to activate those three demons in the collective consciousness, we need 1. Channels. And what is better than the mass media? In the old times, we had books and scripture. Today we have TV and radio and newspapers, and gradually also the social media is shifting into that domain because they're already hijacked. 2. Storytelling and content that flood through those channels, and in this specific case, storytelling that channels the three demons. 3. Repetition, repetition, repetition. 4. Controlling the narrative in the field, overwhelming the channels. A. By being the most dominant or the only side of the story and the only source of information. B. Crushing and intimidating the opposition with trolling campaigns and financed events and demonstrations in the field and online, like online trolls. All that creates the illusion of consent. Here it is important to distinguish between the real people and the free thinkers who emerge organically to resist the scam, and trolls who are actually paid to support the scam in order to create the illusion of consent. This is a bit complicated and might be difficult because today we even see trolls that accuse real people of being trolls. So everyone gets confused. 5. This level is when society is already hijacked and the majority becomes zombies. So they follow unjustified rules on a massive scale and start to police themselves and to control the narrative impulsively and to bite those who do not buy into the zombie's mind. In this level, it becomes difficult to see the difference between the zombie and the troll because anyway, the trolls have already finished the job and they are not necessary anymore. Zombies now are ready enough to do the job on their own. They're already on autopilot. And voila! We have a new norm where everyone accepts what is unethical to be ethical and what is ethical and moral to be illegal and unethical. I hope I could shed some light on this. Thank you everyone for staying with me. I'm Shredy Jabarin. Ciao.